We are now in the panel entitled Indigenous and Subcultural Contexts. Our first speaker, we've got two speakers, Faye and Maja. We start with Faye Gebara here. She is a lawyer and anthropologist, specializes in merging indigenous and scientific knowledge, advocates indigenous cosmologies, dare I say, / metaphysics, researches consciousness in non-human entities, very interesting, and aims to protect indigenous rights. So please give it up for Faye.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Peter, for the nice introduction. And thanks for the organizers as well for being here in such a inspiring workshop. I'm learning a lot. I hope you were still awake for this last session. And I also feel a lot of pressure on my talk because a lot of people make mentions that, oh, I will leave this to the anthropologist and so on. And to be honest, I feel already that a lot of the things that I am going to talk about have been said here, but hopefully I'm going to give you another perspective. And I also tried to keep it simple, because I think that's how, like, if we had an indigenous scholar here to present for you, that's the way they would do it. So hopefully I'm gonna honor their ways of doing it as well. So let's start. So I'm gonna look at the concept of integration from an indigenous perspective. And I think this concept is actually foreigner to them. And I've chosen this picture, which is constructed by Midjourney, just to illustrate an indigenous ritual that it's actually led by a bufu, because I trust that many of us here, we still need to connect better to the fact that for indigenous people, psychedelics, what we call psychedelics, for them are actually spirits, are medicines that have a spirit, as Andy was mentioning here from the Yawanawá talk. And these spirits are actually the ones in charge and leading a ritual or a spiritual session, and being like the main teacher of this ritual of the session, or a ceremony, as they call. And I'll come back to this. And I'll also give some examples from the Yawanawá culture and also from the Huniquim, which are groups from Brazil. So in terms of the etymology of the verb to integrate, we have that to integrate comes from the Latin integrare, meaning make whole, complete, to render something whole, bring together the parts of something. And as we've seen this afternoon in the psychedelic context, a wide range of definitions have been put forward, characterized by an even wider variety of practices, integrative practices. Historically without models, as Andy was showing, or guidance as to when and why particular practices might be chosen. But what about the indigenous context? And for that, I think it's important to ask as well, what are we integrating when we look at such a context? So broadly speaking, indigenous practices rely on some important components, such as the community, the group, what some of them call the family, the spiritual belief, the different spiritual beliefs and different traditions, the chants, the prayers, the art, the care they have with the body, they have with themselves and with each other. And also, of course, the relationship with other than human beings, being them alive or not, meaning the spirits, the people that have passed away, what they call their ancestors. So, and in their vision, mind, body, community, spirit, nature normally tend to be seen as a unified entity. With daily life, with spirituality, and also with medicine, and not seen as separate as normally we do in our society. And imbalance or separation between these elements is actually, in their vision, what causes illnesses and diseases. So when we talk about the indigenous context, for me, it's very important to think about rituals. And since I've begun to work with indigenous people, I have thought a lot about ceremony and ritual. And I think all societies have ceremony, rituals, including religious rituals, sacraments, national rituals, seasonal festivals, and so on. Like birth, marriage, death. There are many different types of rituals, and these are generally community and culturally based and follow a traditional formal pattern. And they imply a kind of continuity, a memory that is transmitted from past generations through the practice of the ritual itself, as they bring the past to the present. And I like very much the views of American anthropologist Gregory Bateson, where he thinks that certain kinds of rituals and spiritual beliefs serve as a corrective function that allows the integration of a narrow individual consciousness with the larger circuits of different processes, including the collective process and what he called the ecologies of mind. So in his theories, psychoactive plants can actually be seen as tools for, as we've been talking about, blurring the ego boundaries between individuals and their larger social and ecological contexts. And ritual in this context is something that it works as an instrument to foster this self-transformation, while at the same time challenging the participants' own cultural constructs and basic assumptions about the world. So normally you are going to deconstruct the world that you used to believe in during a ritual. And he also argued that our epistemology, Western epistemology, normally perpetuates a system of understanding which is actually means to an end driven. And this narrows our perception, limiting what comes into consciousness, and therefore limiting the amount of wisdom that can be generated from our perceptions and acquired through the ritual and through these plants. And he then argued for a position of humility and acceptance of the natural system instead of our scientific arrogance in relation to it, where we think that we know better than other beings in nature. And he believes that this humility could come about only when thought and emotion and mind and the heart are combined to obtain knowledge. So I think this is actually where his thinking has an intersection with indigenous ontologies and ways of thinking, because for indigenous people, like this humility, this gratitude and wonder is really central to their beliefs and their practices. And this is actually part of their culture as well, which is for me something that it's key when we think about integration. So they nurture stance of humility and gratitude and wonder for life and for other beings. They perceive themselves as serving these other beings rather than the opposite, like us. Like we extract things from these beings to use them for our purposes. So for them, different beings, human or non-human, come into being through their relations with others. So what has been called relational ontology on social sciences. And this means that they are already integrated with the rest of nature. They actually are as we are nature. And for the Quechua speaking people, for example, the individual is constantly changing and becoming others, and people don't have this fixed identity. There is this transience and mutability that is part of every being, including us, and it's present every day in their culture and practices. And it is exactly this process of becoming others that I think it's a bit alien to us still, even though of course, we know that nothing is static, we are changing all the time, but more and more in our society, we became somehow comfort in our ways of being and behaving. And another important difference is in terms of how to integrate in their culture, in our culture, is that in many cases, we are interested in fixing something when we go to these rituals, when we use these medicines. And normally this happens at this individual level, as Batterson was referring to, in terms of the ego, of the self-transformation, and so on, instead of connecting to the spiritual realm, which is actually one of the main objectives of the use of these medicines in their culture. And we are always looking for a result as well, an answer, a solution, instead of actually learning from the process of becoming. And this normally takes time, and it's not going to happen in one ritual or in one ceremony. And this is one of the reasons why integration has been so spoken about recently. And for them, actually, the process is the means, not the end. So moving to the Yawanawá and the Huniquin, and they belong to the pano-linguistic family that inhabits the tropical forests of Peru, Bolivia, and Brazil. I'm going to speak from the Brazilian perspective. It's the groups, because they are the groups that I've been working with. And the Yawanawá, they call themselves as the people of the white-lipped peccary, the people of Queixada in Portuguese. And the Huniquin means, Huni means human, and Queen means true, so the true human. And both groups are hunter-gatherers, and in such societies, there is no distinction between spirituality and the rest of subsistence and the rest of cultural life. It's everything interwoven and linked, and their everyday life is embedded in rituals. And although today the most notable aspect of their shamanism is healing, the shaman's role is also also happens and touches different aspects of the community, such as warfare and hunting. So just to give some examples of how ayahuasca is understood by these two different groups, both of them have been leading the spread of their culture all around the world. So I think that's why I felt it would be important to understand what does it mean to these groups. And for the Huniquin, they name it Nishipai, as they believe it is the wire of enchantment. And for them, in everyday life, we can only see the ordinary side of reality and the bodies, and not the revealing side of it, the more subtle aspect of the identity that is actually common to all the living beings, which they call Iushin. And that could be maybe translated as the spirit, and perceiving the Yushin that inhabit all living beings and recognizing them as Huniquin is what actually enables the perception of equality among all beings. And for the Yawanawá, Uni, it's how they call it, and it is the sacred vine. And by naming it Uni, they are teaching us about this unity and how their constant rituals and journeys through Uni actually ensure this relationship between humans and other than human beings. That is one of union, of balance, of reciprocation, and meaning that humans never take more from other than human beings than that which they can return, and not just materially. This return is not just in our perception of reciprocation, but it's also in this spiritual perception, with honor, with gratitude, and chants and prayers that they create through the use of Uni. And none of these groups and the other indigenous groups that use ayahuasca use the term psychedelic, as Paul mentioned. For them, they are sacred medicines. And I think you can see here the jiboia, the boa constrictor, which is common to both of these groups. And I think someone mentioned, I don't know if it was Christine, mentioned about like the enchanted serpent or something. For them, this is a very sacred animal, and they see it as one of the first animals that came into our world, and the one that has its whole body connected to the earth. And as such, this animal carries a lot of knowledge in their view, and knowledge about the land, but also it's also a wise ancestor of ours. So this is very different probably than most of us here think about the jiboia, as we probably are afraid of it, but certainly similar to what our Greek ancestors once thought about the healing powers of the serpent, which actually became the main symbol of medicine. So according to the Yawanawá, taking Uni is then an opportunity to unite and expand the family. And here family refers to this extended family of humans and other than humans and spirits and so on. And through this reciprocal engagement with this being, they believe they gain this knowledge of all that exists and of their existence in this world as well. And their story about how they discovered ayahuasca come from the encounters with these beings, real encounters in real life, but also in dreams, for example. And they define themselves as the people of Queixada because they understand that together we are stronger. And in the forest, they believe that when the Queixada walk together, then they are like the strongest animal of the forest. Even the jaguars step back when they are together. And in their story, Uni came most of all with the mission of connecting them to the ones that passed away, to their ancestors. It's the story of the first death of the Yawanawá. So again, for them, everything is a ritual, from bathing themselves in the river and being thankful for the water, to hunting and praying for their prey. And to me, what I think it's one of the main lessons I learned from them is that our identities are actually formed through these active processes. And it's these identities are constructed, supported, and enhanced through communities and true relations that we have with all these different beings. And these connections from the individual to the rest of the family, how they call, also help people who are on a healing journey towards recovery. So when someone is sick, all the community get together to help that person to heal. And in terms of integration, going back to the integration, what indigenous contexts teach us is that framing how we understand ourselves and our relations as active processes and not static ones is also crucial to understanding healing and our own journey here. So having this sense of community is an integral part of their culture and their healing techniques. and it generates a support network for bad days and difficult situations, and gives a sense of connection to people who may have experienced similar experiences, including the people that has passed away. And for them, these are teachers again. And it became evident to me as well that not just their medicines, but mainly their rituals provided the structure and the space where this self and collective transformation can take place. And again, it's important to keep in mind that these rituals are actually concerned with elements that are tangible and intangible, material and symbolic, and many times indescribable, just experienced, that actually provide these tools for transforming contexts. And another important concept for the Yawanawá, and I think some of you learned about it when they visited here last month, is Mesenai, which is related to the respect we have for others, but also how we care for others, how we care for ourselves. And I think this also relates to what Andy was saying about Foucault's care of the self, and the care we have for our family and so on, which are values that I think we are highly disconnected from in our individualistic and competitive society. So to go back to integration and try to give some concluding thoughts, I think that something that, as has been said here already, integration is not part of indigenous contexts, because they are already integrated with the rest of nature, with their own and expanded families, with the community. They have this network of different beings working together to help them and to get advice and to understand the world. And there are no spiritual and ontological conflicts, but most importantly, they listen to their intuition. They listen to these other beings. They follow like their hearts instead of their minds, which I think was something that we talked a lot about today, the mind, what happened in our mind. And this is something that to me makes integration a more natural and organic process. And I don't want to paint like a romantic idea of indigenous people here. They have been through many difficult situations, many traumas. They are still going through them. And of course, globalization has transformed them a lot already. But I do believe that many of these values are still at the core of their practices. So here I brought some quotes from Xanihu Yawanawá, who was visiting, and I had the honor to translate when he was visiting England. And he normally ends ayahuasca ceremony, uni ceremony, saying that the ceremony starts now, meaning that it is what we do after that will really matter for our purposes and our process of healing, of learning, and so on. But he does not speak about integration. He speaks about choices. He says that the main medicine is inside us, and that we have the choice of how to act, and that this is our main power. This is what we need to do. And I think it was Mark that was referring to agency. And so I think in his view is this very simple process of integration, right? Like, do your part, do your homework, make good choices, and yeah, this is it. So just to conclude and go back to what are we integrating in the end, I think, as was said here already, I think Jeff said a lot about it, is needed in our society because of different factors and the context we live in, and because we are highly disconnected from these original values. They are not just common to indigenous, but pre-industrial societies in general. We don't need to go far in the forest to find these values and practices. And then when we go back to our normal lives, it's not easy. Western and modern ontologies typically create dualities that are hierarchically linked to the society we live in, meaning we lost the indigenous concept of family as well, of community. And there is a clear ontological shift as well doing ayahuasca ceremony, but also with other medicines and psychedelics that generates a feeling of disconnection and isolation from others in our real life when we are back to real life, who cannot comprehend these new understandings that we acquired about life, and have also conflicting beliefs with the things that we learned in a ritual or with the use of a psychedelic. So it's also important that we start unlearning some of our current beliefs. And I think this is actually happening. I think we are in the middle of this process, or in the beginning maybe, because when we think about like 15 years ago, we wouldn't be talking about it like we are in this workshop. But of course, there's still a long way to walk in, and most of these things are very theoretical. We need more practice of these beliefs, of these values. But I guess in our Western modern perspective, many things start in theory to then become a practice, which is very different than the indigenous way of doing it. And just to give a quick example, I've been working to protect their rights in relation to ayahuasca, and then we had this meeting with one of the companies that is producing ayahuasca pill, and I needed to bring some indigenous to the meeting, and one of the first questions of them was like, "Have you taken ayahuasca?" to the CEOs and the researcher there that was presenting their ideas about the ayahuasca pill, and none of them have taken ayahuasca. Yeah. So imagine for the indigenous asking that, it was her first question was like, "Have you taken ayahuasca?" So how come, like for her, it was, how come are you developing something and studying something that you have never experienced? So for many of these indigenous groups, not just the Yawanawá, the practice of ayahuasca, it starts with experimentation. It's like every note in their chants, every movement in a dance, every song, every art, like the songs of the plants, as Christine was saying, all of them carry an intrinsic meaning, call it ontological meaning, that is intricately interwoven with the fabric of their existence. So these expressions of culture and spirituality, they're not just performances or a substance that you take. They are actually, they have this profound significance that surpasses the objectiveness of our society, and even eludes the limited capacity of our five senses. So it's, as Sjöstedt-Hughes also was saying when he was visiting here, it's like another language. They call it the spiritual language. But yeah, we can give any name, but it's a completely different language from what we are talking about here in these conferences. And I think this spiritual language is also something that we are needing to relearn, to go back to. And it's this language and the true essence of the indigenous culture that is awakened, especially through these rituals. And it's something that defies objective explanation. It's most of the times we cannot explain it. It's deeply felt in our body, in our emotions. And I think there was this description by Durkheim in 1912 that he called it as a collective effervescence, like this communal elevation, this state of elevation that transcends and envelops the ritual itself. But it's also important to think not just about the communal rituals that we can have, but also the rituals that we can have with ourselves, our own small everyday rituals, like drinking a coffee or taking our shower and bath, thinking of the power of water and so on, being more mindful about these small rituals. And rather than solely considering psychedelics as promoters of the whole in terms of the integration, right? Of the complete, of the integrated, and of the connectedness, promoters of connectedness, as we've been calling here. It's also important to ask what causes this connectedness. Is it the substance? Is it the ritual? Is it the music, the community, the actions we take after, or the reactions we have? Or is everything together? And it's also important to step outside of the means to an end mind setting and trust the process. I think we are lacking the trust that Indigenous people have. They really trust these plants as teachers, as I was saying in the beginning, as spirits, as knowledgeable spirits. And they don't go and keep asking what happened after a ceremony. You know, they just trust what they saw. They trust what they experienced. They are not asking and trying to put it into words and to objectify it. And another important point is the process of union, listening, and attuning to other presences, other beings, as Ross was saying, in terms of the trees. And in Indigenous groups, this is not just limited to the shamans, but it's also practiced by all the community in different daily situations. So I think the more we incorporate this in our daily lives, the best will be our integration process. And finally, we need to keep in mind that the Amazonian conceptions of healing typically, again, happens through the body instead of the brain or mind. And I think Andy was saying that since the very first mentions to integration, it was actually, again, about the mind. But for Indigenous cultures, we need to take care of the bodies, of the spirits, pay attention to how we feed ourselves. And here, I mean, all types of feedings, from information to food, from how we feed our spirit to our body, to the matter as well. And also going back to whatever experience we had with these medicines or in a ritual, not just in our minds, but with our bodies, with our hearts, to be able to really embody the learning, embody the experience we had. And this is another example, like in the ceremonies Sjöstedt-Hughes gave when he was visiting the UK. He was always saying to me, you know, why don't the British dance? It's like, even when we invite them, sometimes they feel there's no point of being here, you know, singing and asking them, let's dance. This is one for dancing and so on. Because again, for them, dancing is an expression of this culture, these beings, and these learnings. It's almost like your body is going to learn through dancing, like through the incorporation of the chanting into moves. And I think this is another thing we need to relearn as well, like how to dance. And again, just to emphasize what Ross was saying as well, we don't need to go far into the Amazon to do all these things. Like, we can do it here, we can do in this land, we can get together with grassroots communities, with the trees that are present here, and start interacting more with them. I will just finish with this citation, this quote from Chief Nishiwaka Yawanawá at the Psychedelic Science last year. He said, I think, I'm going to read and then I'm going to comment. He said, the scientists will spend many years researching about these medicines, but if you do not understand the oranges of these mental health diseases, we will continue to lose time. These illnesses are linked to everything that you, the white, the Western people, are doing. I am not against the science that you are doing with our sacred plants, but why don't you invite the true connoisseurs of these plants? What point we have arrived in this human ignorance? We are living in a new cycle, a new time of humanity, time of forgiveness, time of alliances, time for peace, time for love. Our human society is declining. If we don't reveal the concept of humanity, the future of humanity may not be long. We need to get together. We are with open arms for this new dialogue, this new discussion. But you are doing all this for the market, for your egos, for prizes. But only when you include us, you support us, you are healing the planet. We need to reconnect with our essence. So I think it shows a lot about how we are still ignoring their knowledge and about our cultural ignorance. What some I actually have argued that was the reason why Western science has been aware of ayahuasca for nearly 4 centuries, but its medicinal benefits have not been further studied because we kind of like, we felt it was something, that didn't have any value. And even more astonishing is that our understanding of it today is no more advanced than that of the researchers who first encountered it. So I wonder, what is science and who defines it and for what purposes? Because why do we need psychedelic research to legitimate something that has been already experienced and showed by indigenous people for many centuries? And more importantly, can science explain everything? And I think we are so embedded in this culture and this dominance of science that even here we included the indigenous in the subculture panel, while in this for these medicines they are the culture. So yeah, I will finish because I think I don't have more time with this last quote from Ashaninka shaman, where he says that this is how nature talks. It talks to us in our visions. When a shaman drinks his camarampi, which is how they call ayahuasca, the spirits present themselves to him and explain everything. And again, it shows how they exchange the knowledge with these medicines and not this extraction logic that normally we as scientists, we focus on. Thank you.
Thank you, Faye. Quite fascinating. Quickly, some housekeeping. Online people, we start 1 o'clock tomorrow. In-room people, we need to be out of this room by 6 o'clock, absolute latest, less severe punishment. Right, let me introduce the next speaker. Maja Kohek, you'd like to come down? Maja works for ICEERS, Netherlands, which is the International Center for Ethnobotanical Education, Research and Services. Maja has a PhD in medical anthropology and global health. She researches ritual use of psychoactive plants such as cannabis and ayahuasca, also researching psychedelic circles initiated and led by women. So please give it up for Maja.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for this nice presentation. Thank you to the organizers for inviting me here. And yeah, as Peter already mentioned, I come from ICEERS. For those who don't know the organization, we do a lot of things. We try to base our activities and our projects really in communities, different kind of communities. Also indigenous communities, also Western society, our communities, where we work with, where we also generate knowledge from. And besides educational activities and policy activities and legal advices, we also support people in need that had experiences with plant medicines. And we also do research, which, as I said, is focused on what we call real-world evidence and in real-world practices. So something that other people would call underground practices, those that don't happen in laboratories. Although we also did a clinical trial with ibogaine, but that's another topic. So what I came here to talk about is wonderland, País de las Maravillas. It's a community where I did my fieldwork in for my PhD. And why did I choose to talk about it? Because I think it's a nice example of how psychoactive plants are being used in our society, that is very much inspired by the different indigenous communities, and how they kind of try to bridge or reintroduce these kind of practices here. So why is it called País de las Maravillas? Well, because they like to make jokes, and because they say that we live in a world full of wonders, and our role in this world is to take care of everything we see, everything we see. It's not only humans, plants, it's rocks, it's everything has a spirit, everything is alive, and we are here to take care of it all. So because we are in a wonderful world, they live in Wonderland. And usually people at the end of the presentation ask me, where is it? So I will already in advance tell you that once you see the white rabbit, you have to follow it, you will find it. So this quote was presented here a couple of times already. And actually, I'm not here to talk about how to integrate psychedelic experiences. This example is more about how to integrate psychedelics into the society. So I'm pretty sure you are all familiar with Huxley's Island. He kind of explained there how it could look like to integrate psychedelics in society. The thing is, Pala Island is fiction and Wonderland is reality. So the community was started not with a community in mind. It was started by one woman who was at a point in her life when she had to make a change. She took two of her youngest children. She went to live in a house which was more of a ruin than a house in a mountain in Catalonia. And she took three of her friends with her, with their children as well. And why did she choose this place? Well, because she was a daimista. She was drinking daime. And in one of the experiences she had was in that mountain. She knew the house existed from before. So the spirits of the plant told her to go there, and under one condition. She has to say yes to anyone who wants to come there and stay there. So she can't reject anyone. This is also how I was able to go there and live with her for a while, because she actually couldn't reject me. I didn't know that in advance. I realized that later on. So this is also a phenomenological community, I call it. It's not that it's a sort of hippie community where people live together. It's just this house with some other structures around, and people come there, no, from their houses, which is in the city, in other villages, in other countries even, and they come there for common rituals that they do there. When I arrived in Catalonia, it was just a few months after the referendum, which you probably heard about. It was the referendum on the independence of Catalonia, which was in October 2017. I came just after New Year there, and all this turbulent political environment was very present, especially in the rural parts of Catalonia. And I mention it because it was also very much reflected in what Wonderland or what the community was doing or how they responded to it. No, so it's not that they are living in a vacuum somewhere in forgotten in the mountains, but they're very much responding to what is going on in their surroundings, in the society, and it's also how they respond to it, no? Because there was a lot of police violence, there was also a division in society, so their way of responding to it is to do a pilgrimage to Montserrat. Montserrat is a really picturesque, very interesting mountain range in Catalonia. There is a monastery there, and in that monastery is the Black Virgin Mary. In the box there, you can go, you can touch the Mary behind glass, but it's there locked up. So their idea was to refer again to the traditions that were done in Spain and in Catalonia still nowadays, but more in the past, is to take the saints out of the monasteries, out of the churches to the people, so that it gives them hope, so that they come to people and that the people can kind of have a bit closer connection to them. So their idea was, let's make a pilgrimage to the monastery. Let's demand to take out this wonderful Black Mary with her golden dress. She will illuminate the world. She will bring peace to not only to Catalonia, to Spain, to the world. They did that several times. It didn't succeed. They just didn't want to take her out. But anyway, that was their way of incorporating also the Black Virgin Mary into their rituals. There is a song dedicated to her, so they sing it every day, several times per day. It's a long song. It's in Catalan. And they just sing to her and still pray that she will bring peace to this place. So as I mentioned, the woman that started it all comes from Santo Daime, but actually this place, and she was also traveling a little bit around, but more people traveled to this place. So everyone who traveled here brought their practices, brought their knowledge. And in time, it was, they created a sort of mix of these traditions. They do use daime, ayahuasca. In some of the ceremonies, they do grow their own San Pedro. For other ceremonies, they do grow Santa Maria, cannabis. Cannabis is particularly important for the community also because for them, it's really important that you can have a relationship to the plant that you are practicing in rituals. So ayahuasca is from the jungle. It comes from far away, but the San Pedro, they grow themselves. The cannabis is kind of our tradition as well, no? And you can plant the seed in the garden and you take care of the plant, and that's where your relationship to that plant starts, with planting the seed and then growing it and then sharing it in rituals. So they created all sorts of very unique rituals that I believe are practiced only there. And this is the so-called Casa de Consejo. advisory house. This was destroyed by a storm, so they built another one and they renamed it into the Casa de Conejo, the rabbit house, because again, they like humor. And this is just one of the structures where they do ceremonies. And the thing, if I relate it now to integration and to what we will also listen tomorrow, I think, is how these experiences are framed in Wonderland. So people that come there, these are all people who know each other. They were friends, they were family. So they know who they are, they know where they come from, they know their problems, they know their needs. And they don't come to these ceremonies because they have a mental health issue that they want to solve, or any kind of these kind of problems, but the ceremonies are framed in a different context. It's more with the perspective of the community. So they come together to celebrate. Or they come together to pray for rain, because we know that in some parts of Spain, rain is a bit scarce and it's really an issue. So their way of coming together and utilizing or creating these places where they kind of connect with these plants and practice these rituals like they learned from different communities that they had contact with, no? So instead of asking for, please make me well, please cure my disease, it's more, please help us and our community, and not only us humans, but also the plants that surround us and the nature that we are all part of. And by framing the rituals in this community way, also the experiences that they have are different. So they don't, after the experience, after the ceremony, the ritual is over, they don't go to a integration therapist. They have a círculo de palabra the next day, usually. Not necessarily, but most of the time it happens. It's done with tobacco. So whoever smokes the tobacco has the power to speak. And if you listen to what they say in these circles, sharing circles, it's usually connected to the community as well. So even if they went through a personal struggle and it was a difficult experience, what they will point out is that they felt supported by the community. They felt the work that each one of them did to sustain that space, no? So it translates a little bit differently, the experiences that they have. Plus, for example, the Santa Maria is smoked in the mornings and in the evenings. It's always smoked in group. And when I asked Abuela, the grandmother, why is it done like that? Why is it done in the morning and in the evening? She again referred to traditions that farmers had back in the days in the country she comes from, which was to wake up in the morning and pray for a good day. So that's what she tries to recreate with the ritual, where we share the Santa Maria all together and pray for a good day. And in the evening, we again all come together. Stuff has happened during the day. You might even get upset. But in the end of the day, you come together, you share the Santa Maria, you sing together, sometimes you dance together. And this is how also every day these times are created when we all come together, we all share together, and we all experience joy together, usually. They also have educational component to the rituals. So there are some rituals that are just specifically for women. That doesn't mean that men are not involved in the ceremony, because everything is ceremony in the end. If there is a ceremony that lasts for 1 week, then everything in that week is a ceremony. The people preparing the food in the kitchen, it's a ceremony. No, they are part of it. It's not excluded from what is happening there. So the ones who prepare the food are doing it consciously with that in mind, that they also prepare the food in the ceremony. And in these women's circles, men also participate, but they have certain roles. For example, taking care of the fire for the Temazcal or for the sweat lodges. And women have ceremonies where they share among each other. There is education going on about the female body, about the menstrual cycle, about sexuality, about establishing a different relationship also to your monthly cycles. And it was an interesting story that one of the abuelas said about the importance of how we as women perceive our menstruation every month. So the story was that she asked, what are you doing with your blood every month? And then the women said, well, I take it out, I throw it in the trash bin, I empty it, things like that. And then she asked again, what do you do with your power? So this is something that they try to turn around a little bit and make women also think differently about who they are. And they created, well, there is a cherry tree growing in the garden. So they created this nice little altar where every month the women can come and give their blood to the tree. And this is how they also want to try and make women establish a different connection to themselves, basically. There's the sweat lodge that we do. This is so the other picture is a specific ceremony that is dedicated to cannabis, to Santa Maria. It's called Navegación Mariana. That I also said already. So I will be moving further. Yeah, so if we come back to integration and to what they are doing, basically, I don't know if that was the reason why in the beginning this community was started, or it was not even started with the mind of, I will do a community here, but it was just, I need this and I need to do this. I don't know why. Let's see what happens. So in the meantime, that was 20 years ago or more, this community developed. There is, yeah, I met in 1 year of being there, several hundred people who come and go. Some are a bit more present in the space. You as a member of this community, if you feel that you need some distance from your everyday life, if you think you really need to rethink stuff, you can come there. You can come there for a weekend. You can come there for a week, for a month, years. And just basically try to figure out what is your next move, what you want to do with your life. So it's, as they also like to joke about, they don't refer to it as a university, but a multiversity where you can learn all sorts of stuff. No, also planting salads, working in the field. You can learn from all the people that you meet there about different cultures. You can learn different practices. So they kind of create this, let's call it a bubble in our society, where if you have also experiences with psychedelics, which they never would call psychedelics, but anyway, where you are not considered weird for having these experiences, but normal, and where you have this community that supports you, no? And that if in case you need any kind of help, you always know that they will get your back, basically. And as Abuela says, usually that the future of human society is in small tribes. So we have to organize in small tribes, we have to work together, we have to form this community so we can basically address all these great issues that we in the Western society are facing, such as great disparities between people, such as rising loneliness, which some call even an epidemic, mental health problems that are also quite present in our society. So this is kind of their way of addressing it. And for them, the main answer to address all these problems is community, no? And this is what they try to do. But of course, this is just one example, and 5 minutes, okay, I have still some time. This is just one example, and it's more an exemption than a rule. So in ICERS, we also have a support center, as I mentioned in the beginning, and the support center tries to address other problems that we see in this area, which is that people do have problems in dealing with the experiences that they have had, no? So we have this support center, which now we call Lighthouse El Faro, where people can contact us with any kind of problem or question, and we try to help them out as good as we can. And I think we got several thousand people contacting us in the last 10 years that this service exists. The organization itself celebrates this year 15 years. And since end of 2022, we also have a form that you have to fill out. So you have to say what kind of issues you really have. So we know already to prepare well when you have an appointment with a therapist. So we did a quick view on what kind of data we actually get, or why people contact us. And of course, the majority is either in acute crisis and need some help, or had the experience and needs some sort of support with what we call integration. And there is a smaller percentage of people who are thinking about taking psychedelics, and it's usually people who heard somewhere in the media or from a friend that for their mental health condition, it would be good. So they are puzzled by, oh, should I do it? And is it safe? So that's mainly the reasons why they contact us, and mainly also the countries where the people come from that contact us. It's also, men and women, a bit more women than men. It's kind of around 40 years old, so also not that young. The majority is not in psychiatric treatment or also receives psychotherapy. So, I mean, they are not really mental health patients, let's say. The majority of people contact us because of ayahuasca-related ceremonies. That doesn't want to say that ayahuasca is the main issue, but it's just that also our organization works mainly in ayahuasca. That's what people know us from, I think. So, but these are kind of also the other substances that they take and experience problems with. And what was interesting when you go and read those short statements where they explain what's wrong, there are some specifics, which is the majority of people has issues with anxiety, so extreme fear and just feelings that they can't function in a normal day-to-day life, so they really need some sort of support. It's not only people who went for a retreat in Peru a week ago and come back home and now there is a problem, but it's also people, and quite a lot of them, who took a psychedelic 10 years ago. And they still struggle with it nowadays, and it's still affecting their day-to-day. That was surprising for me, that they actually need so much time to come to and be able to talk to someone who can understand them. And people experience different kind of things, so we try to kind of put it in 3 categories. One is physical effects, so really, headaches or something very physical. Then it's anxiety, psychological problems, and then there is something that we still struggle of how to call it. It has a bit different flavor to it. You can't just simply put it in, oh, that's a psychological effect, but they are talking about entities, they are talking about feeling possessed or other kind of energies. And our therapists try to keep an open mind with all of these people, and if they feel that they really can't help them anymore, then we tend to refer them to other curanderos and people who are trained in these other kind of experiences and possibly help them with that. And with that, I want to just close it off. There is still another one, which is the integration course that we are doing, a quick commercial, and that's it.
Thank you, Maja. We've got very little time, but Faye, would you like to join us on stage here, please? First of all, online, Joseph, anyone online with any questions we forgot last time? No? Okay, you have one? Anyone else? No? All right. You're not online, but go on. Or is he? Scream.
So I have 2 questions, and they mostly apply to Maja. Thank you so much. I loved your talk about ICPR, and it's nice that you could now have more time to offer a more rich and thick description. And okay, we've spoken many times, really, I think this applies to both of you. So my question is twofold. Firstly, to do
That's 2 questions, one, please.
It's twofold, but it's connected. It wants to do with humor, and the other is to do with abstinence. So let's start with a little story.
No, Mark, we have to share. We haven't got much time. Just the question, please.
Okay, we'll forget the humor. Abstinence, then.
Have that. You can have that afterwards.
So,
Time is short.
is there any? Have you ever encountered a situation in either of the communities that you study? Have you ever encountered a situation in either of the communities you study where someone doesn't want to take the medicine? And I'm speaking just from personal experience that THC tends to turn me into it kind of chemically lobotomizes me. And as a result, what your community calls Santa Maria or cannabis, I have very, very small amounts of, and very occasionally in my life as a small inspiration, but actually I I'm generally such a lightweight with it that I turn into a robotic drone. So if I were to indeed join that community, which otherwise I really loved, I would have to say
Come on.
no to the Santa Maria, and how would they respond to that?
Mark, just a question, not your life story, please.
Okay.
Yeah, you can of course say no, or even not say anything, because nobody will force you into anything. The thing is that when the pito, as they call it, is passed, you take it, you pay, well, you kind of bless yourself with it without needing to actually smoke it, and you pass it on. So you do take it, you do acknowledge it, but you pass it on and nothing happens. No, it's totally fine. It's on you if you want to consume it actually or not.
In my case, no, not that I remember. Yeah.
Everyone engages with Uni.
Well, I think, yeah, that's one of the main reasons people go to their land, and in terms of like the ceremonial part.
But the tribal members of the Huniquin and the Yawanawá, there are no absentees.
Oh, I mean, you mean like the members? No,
members of the
it's
tribe.
not everyone.
It's
No,
not everyone.
No, not everyone. No.
So it's a calling.
Yeah. And actually, for many years during their colonization time, like a lot of them wouldn't be able to do it. So there was this recovering of the culture time where they needed to re-engage with it.
Thank you.
Didn't mean to be rude, Mark, sorry. Next question, please.
I have a very brief question. It was sparked by Maja, your talk, but I think equally relevant. I'm curious how the communities that you study deal with conflict. I was hearing a lot of sort of, very pleasant things. I'm curious how conflict is held.
Yeah, they tend to focus on the pleasant things, not so much on conflict. And they try to kind of manage it. I mean, conflict within the community or conflict with the society, you mean?
Within the community.
Within the community. They try to just, not address it that much, honestly. In that 1 year that I was there, I didn't notice or I didn't witness a lot of conflict, honestly. I think I would need to be there a bit longer to be able to say more about that. But they do try to use a lot of humor and in that way kind of loosen it up and transmit some messages that maybe are not so direct and not so confronting, but in a way that maybe you plant a seed and maybe it keeps.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
Hi. Yeah. That was an amazing talk, Maya. I think, and I love the idea of learning lessons through humor. I just wanted to ask, you spent a year there. What was how did it kind of impact your values, or how did you integrate that experience back into being outside of the community?
Well, that was interesting because I went there as a researcher. They couldn't say no to me, so no, that was my ticket in. When I came there, of course, everyone was looking at me and who are you and what's wrong with you? Why are you here? No, what kind of problem do you have to live here? Because they all knew I lived there. And it's a quite, basic living situation. So they were all like, why would you do that? What's wrong? And I was like, nothing's wrong with me. I'm just a researcher. I'm doing research here. No, I'm perfectly fine. Nothing wrong. And then, time passed. And later on, I think even years later, when I came back, I realized what happened to me. One was a conscious decision to stop smoking tobacco and just find a way of relate to this plant in a different way. So I'm not going to be misusing it. The other one was to not consciously and not even wanting to change my experience, my relationship with cannabis, but that just happened. I didn't want that. I didn't look for it. It happened, and I'm still trying. I mean, I'm happy with it, actually. I'm quite grateful for that this happened. If you would ask me a few years ago if I will ever stop smoking cannabis, I would say no way. But it kind of makes sense now for me that you don't just do it as one more thing in your day. No, when you are busy with other stuff and you just smoke a joint or what, nothing wrong with that. Don't get me wrong. But for me, in this time in my life, I think it's better that if I want to relate to this plant, then I will take time for it. I think it deserves that. They taught me about respecting these plants, not as substances or something, but it's beings that if you give them the space, they will talk to you. So I think this is the main thing that I got from it. And yeah, that just came spontaneously. I didn't do any integration on that.
I think we have time for one last question from Andy here.
A question for Faye. I'm always troubled by the translation of whole classes of non-human beings as spirits, which comes with all these connotations of incorporeality, etc., etc. Do you think spirits is a good translation? And if not, is there a better translation? Because it's very hard to grasp what these other than human beings are when coming from a Western context.
Yeah, well, it is hard to translate. And again, I think in their own language, they refer to it as Yushin, like, and Yushinity, somehow it's like having this, it is something that is common, and this is for the Panu speaking group, okay? I'm not talking about like other indigenous groups, but it's something that it's common to all the elements as well, not just like beings, to water, to stone, as you were saying, like to things that we would think are inanimate somehow, but for them they are. And they when they talk in Portuguese, they say spirits. They say like this, all these things, they have spirit, and we need to interact with their spirits. And it's a bit of what you learned and capture as well, like that there is this spiritual world that it's actually the real world, and this is just a passage here, a very short one, where we get the body and the material level, and we can experience it in this material level, but the real world is the spiritual world. Yeah.
Back to metaphysics. Right, that's that. Please thank the speakers, Maja Gebara, Maja Kohek. I'd also like to thank the organizers of this, Mark, Joseph, and Christine, wherever she is.